everybody, my name is Helen and today we're going to be talking about my March TBR. And it's stupidly big, but we're gonna get there. The reason that my TBR is so freaking huge is that I rented an awful lot of books from the library and I already give myself pretty large TBRs so that I have like some fluctuation within it, because usually there's at least something I want to read from this massive ridiculous shelf. We are going to start off with the biggest chunk of books that I have, which are comics. I do have a whole thing planned for next week where I'm going to talk about how I fell in love with comics so hard this year, why I love the medium of comics, so be on the lookout for that. But in the meantime, let's just talk about the shit that I have. So every single one of these has come from my local library, and that's why I'm gonna be trying to read them this month, and there are a lot of them. The first one on the top of my pile here is The Vision, Little Worse Than a Man, and this is with a story by Tom King and art by Gabriel Hernandez Walta. The idea of this being that Vision from the Avengers creates himself a little family. I've heard amazing things about this, and apparently it gets a little bit weird, like a little bit uncomfortable, and I'm here for that. The next chunk of graphic novels that I have here are volumes 1 through 4 of Paper Girls, and this is story by Brian K. Vaughan and art by Cliff Chang. And I know basically nothing about this series, I just know that I love Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and I want to check it out, and this has been nominated for one of the most prestigious comic book awards, which is called the Eisner, for Best New Series and Best Continuing Series consecutively. Also, these covers are stunning. And the next massive chunk of comics that I have are my remaining volumes of The Sandman by Neil Gaiman. I have volumes 6 through 10. This is a adult horror comic about the Sandman and the shenanigans he gets into. Here's the thing about this series, right? It kind of lures you in with a false sense of security, and then it shoves you into the diner scene in volume 1. And the diner scene is how I intend to get every person I know hooked on this, because it's amazing. This is so messed up. If you like sort of psychological style horror movies, I think you would really enjoy this book. I'm stoked to continue this series and hopefully finish it next month. And the next graphic novel that I have is volume 2. Volume 1 is currently waiting for me at the library. Mockingbird. This is by Chelsea Kane and it's a super short series. It only has 8 issues total, and this is volume 2. Volume 1 has the rest. I've heard that the main character is super sarcastic, and also this cover is to die for, so I do have 4 other graphic novels waiting for me at the library, but you know, we're not going to talk about those yet. And the last book that I have from my library is Damsel by Alana K. Arnold. This is a fantasy book where prince of the realm, when they turn a certain age, have to go and rescue a princess from the great terrible beast. So this prince goes and does that, but the princess has absolutely zero memory of it, and he starts feeling like things might be off. I heard about this from Kat over at Catty-tastic's channel, so I'll link her video down below if I can find it. I feel like she gives a much better description of this than I do. And then finally we get to my regular TBR of all of my books. Every month I pick 10 out of my TBR jar, and I try to exclusively read from that list in terms of what I pick off of my shelves. So usually I would pick out all my books on camera, but I didn't think I was going to make this video, so I already picked them out. So the first book I pulled out of my TBR jar was Possessed by Gretchen McNeil, and this is a very interesting sounding book, and I've had it for a very long time. So this is about a girl named Bridget, and she begins to be able to hear the voices of demons in her head. She very quickly discovers that she has the ability to banish them, and while she's doing some sort of interview, she learns that not only is she this person who can banish demons, but she's actually intended to be the vessel for the Demon King to possess. So this sounds really super interesting, and from what I can see on Goodreads, it is a standalone, which is wonderful. The second book I picked out of my TBR jar was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, and yes, I haven't read these books yet, don't judge me. I have yet to read anything by Leigh Bardugo, and I'm actually really excited to dive into this series. I've been hearing such good things about Leigh Bardugo's writing, particularly with Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, which I really want to read, but I actually really want to read these first. I feel like these don't need a whole lot of introduction. The next book that I pulled out of my jar was The Singer's Gun by Emily St. John Mandel, and this is about a boy who everyone around him does really questionable things and he just wants to live a super normal life, but I believe his cousin is blackmailing him to get him to do one last job. It sounds like it's going to be a really fun heist novel and I'm here for that. So the next book that I pulled out was Mortal Danger by Anna Guire, and this sounds very interesting and I feel like the synopsis is kept a little bit vague on purpose. It follows a girl who was so severely bullied in her boarding school that she didn't think she was going to make it to her senior year, but she makes some sort of pact with an entity and now she has the power to take them all down. I read the first book of Anna Guire's dystopian trilogy like years ago now and I actually really enjoyed it, so I'm excited to dive into this and see what else she has in store for me. The fifth book I pulled out was Les Mis by Victor Hugo, and let's be honest for a minute here, I'm not going to read this book this month. It is massive, and if you don't know the story of Les Mis, I don't know how to help you because that shit is convoluted and complicated and wonderful. I highly recommend checking out the movie. If you like musicals, check out the newer one. If you don't like musicals, there's one from 1998 starring Liam Neeson. And the next book I pulled out was Altered by Jennifer Albin, which is the second book in the Cruel World trilogy. I read Cruel ages ago and I loved it. It's actually sitting on my favorites shelf. I need to reread it because it's been so long, but the whole idea of it was that there are certain people in the world who can literally weave the fabric of reality. And I do have Unraveled, which is the last book in the trilogy, so I could finish it off this month if I do shit right. Number 7 is Petal by Chelsea Rooney, and Chelsea Rooney was one of my professors in university. It basically follows this girl who she's doing her master's thesis for psychology, I believe, and she's doing it on pedophiles, so she goes and meets with this man who's a non-offending pedophile. She interviews him and they end up doing like a cross-country bike trip together. It sounds very interesting and it sounds odd. The next book that I have here is The Valley by John Renahan. I thought this was a YA book when I bought it off of Book Outlet. I believe I found it in their teen book section. It does not sound like a teen book from what I can read of the synopsis because it is a war story and I don't know a whole lot about it other than there is some like mythical valley that these dudes have to travel to and that there's some centuries old operation that is hanging in the balance of this one man and what he's doing. It sounds very interesting and it's rated very high on Goodreads, so I might have to check this out a lot sooner than I thought. I'm almost done here, I promise. The next book I pulled out was Mask of the Red Death by Bethany Griffin, which follows a girl who lives in a world where there is a devastating plague that is taking out so much of society, and all she really wants to do is go and visit the debauchery club so that she can wear pretty dresses and just kind of forget about the world that's going on. And then she meets a very rich aristocrat and the proprietor of the club, and things go to shit. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. The final book that I pulled from my TBR jar is Hexed by Michelle Chris, and this sounds like so much fun. It is basically about a girl who goes to a school, and overall she is pretty well loved. She has a mom who runs an occult shop. There's a nerd who's trying to be her friend, but like she's cool with that. But then someone dies right in front of her eyes, and she is dragged into a centuries-old war between witches and sorcerers. And it's been so long since I've read a good witch book, so I'm very excited. And that is everything that I am hoping to read some of in the month of March. I'm actually realizing how terrible this is going to be because I want to read so many of these things and it's not going to happen. I guess we'll just see how far I get. What are you guys planning on reading this month? You should let me know down below. And have you read any of the books that I talked about in this video? If so, you should talk to me about them down below. Let me know what you thought of them, but no spoilers. I do respond to every comment on my videos and I absolutely love hearing from you, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye bye!